Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our listeners around the world. Welcome to our webinar on the makes or breaks of solar digitalization, where we will be discussing everything you need to know about going digital. My name is Alfonso Barrenechea. I'm a project manager here at Solarplaza, and with me, the two speakers for the day are Tobias Bittkau, the Global Director of Services at BayWa, and Etienne Lecompte, the co-founder and CEO of Powerhub. A quick agenda to go over through what we'll be discussing today in the webinar. First, I'll take a couple of minutes to discuss who we are, what we do here at Solarplaza. I'll talk about our upcoming events. I'll end up with some brief practical notes so that our users can take full advantage of this webinar. And then I'll leave the floor for Tobias and Etienne to have the presentation. At the end, there will be a short Q&A session. So please, if you have any questions, let us know through the chat box during the webinar. So about Solarplaza, we're a company based in Rotterdam. We were established in 2004. Our goal is to positively impact the world by accelerating the sustainable energy transition. And we do that through organizing solar energy conferences. We've done over 125 events in 35 countries, and we boast a network of over 60,000 solar PV professionals. Some of our upcoming events, and in light of this webinar, the reason for this webinar is our event in Frankfurt, Germany, Solar Asset Management Europe. It'll be taking place the 30th and the 31st of October of this year. And co-located with this event, we'll have our first edition Renewable Energy Trading Summit taking place the 31st of October. Some other notable mentions are the Solar Future Hungary, taking place the 14th of November in 2019 in Budapest. And finally, on the 21st of November, we have Athens, the Solar Future Greece. A little more details on our Frankfurt event. We are expecting over 450 attendees representing the entire value chain, from investors to asset managers to service providers. Over 50 leading experts will be on stage sharing their vision, expertise, and experience. And just a brief look at some of our attendees, as well as our sponsors. I'd also like to take a moment to thank them. Thanks to all of our sponsors and contributors. You're the reason why events like this are possible. One final reminder, tomorrow, Friday, the 13th of September, our early bird discount expires. And for you viewers of this webinar, you can claim your extra 5% discount by using the code webinar-5. On a final note, some practical details. If you're experiencing technical difficulties during the webinar, feel free to use the chat box. If you have any questions that you would like our experts to answer at the end of the webinar, please use the question box to ask them. These slides are available in the handout section, and of course, the recordings will be made available after the webinar has concluded. Our first speaker is Etienne Lecompte, CEO and co-founder of Powerhub. He's a recognized leader and entrepreneur in renewable energy, software, and regulatory compliance. He started Powerhub after founding the renewable energy compliance consultancy firm, Local Content Assurance Bureau. And our second speaker is Tobias Bittkau, the Global Director of Services at BayWa. He's responsible for asset management, monitoring, and operations and maintenance. And in his time at BayWa, Tobias built the largest independent O&M provider in Europe with over 7 gigawatts of installed capacity under management. And with no more further ado, I'll now give the controllers to Etienne. Etienne, please unmute yourself, and the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that intro, Alfonso. And welcome everybody to our webinar today. The makes or breaks of solar digitalization, everything you need to know about going digital. So going digital for me is a bit more of a conversation than anything. So what we'll cover today is, first and foremost, who are Powerhub and BayWa? What does going digital even mean? Why digital is so important? Where are we as an industry in solar? And then we'll close off with a digital case study that Tobias is going to go through, and also share some lessons learned from our implementations, but also from greater digital transformation efforts. During this webinar, we'll be asking some poll questions. Just get and adjust it a little bit what we're talking about and see that it's relevant to you, the audience. So as Alfonso has mentioned, please do participate in the polls. But also, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the question box, and we'll get those together during the Q&A at the end of the session. Without further ado, you see here some references that we'll have in the handout later on about some studies we're going to refer to during the presentation today. But before we kind of get started in the presentation, maybe it would be great for everybody to describe themselves a little bit. Are you more of a project developer? Are you on the operations side? Are you an asset manager? Or are you a technology provider? So please do click the buttons on your screen so we have a better idea of who you are. All right, so we seem to have a few technology providers in the audience. Well, that's great. Welcome. And then we have asset managers, project developers, and operation managers. And the great thing about digital topics is it really carries across the whole solar value chain, not only at simply the asset management standpoint, even if this is related to an asset management conference or an operations manager, really has an incidence from project development onwards throughout the whole life cycle of the project. So I'll start out by introducing Powerhub a little bit. We're a technology company, and we're big proponents of asset intelligence. So for us, Powerhub, we're more than an asset management platform. We're actually partners of our clients in digitalizing their asset management and operations. Our key focus is to making digital tools the norm in renewable energy, and we've been doing that for the past, well, now the company is 8.5 years old. We're covering 15 gigawatts in about 20 plus countries, 45 team members and growing. And you've probably seen the news recently. We're proud now member of the BayWa RE family, where our focus is going to keep driving the digitalization forward. I've mentioned that asset intelligence is something that's important to us. And so to do that, we're really focusing on helping our clients connect and really make that digital leap through a variety of functionalities. It means centralizing and managing data and information, leaving routine tasks behind in favor of automation, leveraging expertise, and really adding value to your assets and letting software and technology help you move from reactive to proactive and helping you continuously improve your business. And that's really what gets me and gets us excited through a variety of functionality we can bring to the table. And we'll talk about that in the BayWa context later on. So with that in mind, I'll leave it to Tobias to introduce himself and BayWa.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Etienne, and also Alfonso for the introduction. Welcome to everybody to the webinar. I'm pleased to be here today with you, and I'm happy to explain a little bit what BayWa actually is doing. So we are an international company based with headquarters in Germany, but active on all three continents, the Americas, EMEA, and Asia Pacific. We are covering the whole value chain of renewable energy industry. That means we are project developers for wind and solar. We realize the projects, we sell them to investors. We also offer services, that means operation maintenance, asset management, and energy trading. And we also provide energy solutions for medium-sized customers, commercial and industrial industry customers who really want a tailor-made solution for their energy supply. Our market recognition is in Europe. We are the largest independent solar developer on a global basis. For Europe, we are the largest O&M provider, the largest independent O&M provider. We are also really known for the component trading we do. So we have a network of installers and solateurs who do residential rooftops, and we provide the components for them. We are also one of the leading onshore wind developers, and we are having a quite active role in shaping the O&M best practices and the whole industry, participating in different kind of networks. And you may also know us from our Trailblazer project Don Rodrigo in Spain, which we just realized end of last year, which is the biggest subsidy-free project in Europe. Yeah. So we have more than 7 gigawatts of PV and wind assets under our operations, 3.5 gigawatts in the energy trading management. And I don't want to bother you with more details about BayWa because today we are actually talking about digitalization and digital transformation. And if you already touched these topics, then the question is, there's so many buzzwords around. And you could also think about topics like artificial intelligence, big data, blockchain, machine learning, predictive analytics. So people get confused and everybody has a different understanding of these topics. So what do they really mean? And for us, we try to differentiate and make sure that we talk about the same topic today. So if you have a look at that pyramid, then you see that at the bottom, everything starts with digitization. So what does it mean? Digitizing things for us means that you actually have a paper document and scan it. That means you have the document online, but it's just a PDF. You don't do anything with it for now. So the next step would be to digitalize. That means that you start to implement processes in a digital format, meaning that things like the release of invoices or the controlling of some numbers, which have been done manually or on paper in the past, are now going to be done on a digital way. That means you create efficiency, you create speed and quality, but still you do the things like you did them in the past, just on a digital way. Now, if you really want to create value, then you have to go one step further, and that would be to really digital transform the way you do business. And that means that you really, once you have transparency on your data, once you have processes implemented, you really start to do new kinds of business and new kinds of business models. And that's what the industry is facing. And that's a very challenging, very interesting topic, which we like to talk about today.
Yeah, and I think it's a very good point. There's different stages in growth that we see in digital. So maybe we can ask the audience where people are in their own digital journey. From a polling perspective, you can be fully Excel based. You're doing research on how digital can support your business, perhaps. You're in the process of digitalizing your processes, so that middle step. Or digital transformation is a key part of your strategy. Let's see where we are here.
Oh, wow.
Wow, indeed.
Not bad.
Well, we did have a lot of technology providers on the call, so I guess that may skew the data a little bit, but it's great. I think if that's really the case, and we'll see, I'm going to talk about some research that has been done recently that kind of point to being in that lane that digital is going to have a big impact. And ultimately, that's just about companies. Alfonso, can we switch back to the slides? Thanks. And it's really about companies realizing that the market actually is reinforcing the need for digital. I know we have more asset owners and operators in the call today, but we see decreasing costs everywhere, entire value chain. So I think there's pressure on how can we add value as asset owners becomes a very good topic. And on the same time, decreasing costs and margin, you have things that are getting more and more complex, different age portfolios, multiple O&M providers, very fragmented markets sometimes, make it hard to centralize information, assets of different technology types, even different regions, regimes. Tobias mentioned Don Rodrigo, which is subsidy free, where you have other, let's say 10, 15-year-old assets who are kind of in a fully subsidized regime, and everything in between. So it's getting more and more complex, and that complexity and scale drives even and reinforces the need for digital. And similarly for operators, that ongoing focus on continuous improvement, efficiency, and effectiveness, doing the right things, doing them the right way. More and more customers asking for more transparency into what's going on, how's it going. I'm still often shocked at the PDF reports that are sent late to some of our clients. And then obviously the need to scale at a cost effectiveness, and basically having access to that right format of information at the right time to really use resources efficiently in the field. And so if you kind of bring that out to your own businesses, depending on your size and the complexity of your business, digital fits in pretty much everywhere, but it becomes more and more important the more complex your business is, the more important it is. Like if I'm running a large portfolio of anything but standard assets all across Europe, in different size, technology, contract types of different O&M providers and so on, if I don't have a digital platform to support my business, it becomes a lot more complicated to run business effectively and so on. So ultimately, digital is really support to your business. It helps you break through and do more with less. There are always different ways to leverage
Etienne, I think we lost you.
Yes, I think we did lose Etienne at the moment. He will try to reconnect shortly, hopefully. Tobias, anything from your side in here?
Yeah. So it really depends on the size of your business and of the complexity of your business, where you should start to look at digitalization. And one of the use cases I would like to give to you is the one on the next slide. I don't know if, yeah, thank you very much. So the three main columns, pillars of our strategy at BayWa for the service division are we need and to manage a rapid growth. Yeah, so there's a lot of things going on in the market. The install capacity is increasing day by day, and also our project development colleagues are very active in that field. So we have to onboard a new, quite many new wind farms and solar farms month by month. That has to be managed. The second, and the most central topic is that of course customers king at BayWa, and we need to focus on the customer needs and values. And we have a very, like the whole industry, very fragmented customer landscape. So many different customers in many different countries with many different sizes, portfolio sizes and technologies. So an increasing customer base and increasing portfolio, of course, also increases the complexity, and that also has to be kept under control. And last but not least, we all know that good for the planet, the energy prices are decreasing. That means that there's increasing need for efficiency, and there's also a cost pressure for all of us. So we need to optimize and make our operations more efficient to be competitive also in the future. And that means for each of these three pillars, we have implemented certain activities over the last years, but we found out that in each area, we come to, we call it the performance ceiling, and we see that we only can get beyond this performance ceiling if we really take digitalization serious. We are living in a decentralized industry with a lot of data going around, There's a lot of digital formats going around, and it's key issue for us to really not only know what's going on there, but really shape and drive it actively. So, no, can you please stay on that slide? Thank you. So we have several activities ongoing. We are and have been a customer of Powerhub for over a year now. Powerhub is an essential tool for us to really monitor and manage multi-gigawatt portfolios, not only from a technical perspective, but really having the numbers on a very good overview, and of course also to coordinate an increasing number of people who are active in the asset management area. And as you might know, we also have quite decentralized local entities in several European and other markets of the world. So all this has to be coordinated, and Powerhub is a very, very useful tool for that. Secondly, if you want to increase the outcome of a PV farm, for example, you have to make use of the data which the PV farm is creating, and we are using Raycatch here to really make technical analysis and get the best out of an existing PV farm. This is only possible by really analyzing the data we have already on our servers and by using the right tools. Now, if we talk about internal organization, optimization of our own operations, then the implementation of a field resource management tool, or let's say the dispatching of our service technicians, is also really crucial for us, because alone in Europe we have more than 500 people, many of them service technicians in the field doing maintenance works on wind farms and solar farms. And of course, you have to make sure that the right people with the right qualifications are going to the right site, having the right and correct tools in the van, and going the most efficient road to get there. So all of these topics can be optimized and can be improved, not on a piece of paper, but really using the right tools.
Thanks for that overview, Tobias. That's super helpful, and apologies for me for dropping off the call for a second earlier. And I think that can bring us to, I guess, our next poll, Marco, which is all about if you're not of the 47% who are embracing digital strategy as your cornerstone, what's been holding you back from making kind of a digital leap? Is it too expensive, you find? Too time consuming? Is there a lack of internal capabilities sometimes? Or have you not found the right technology partners? Oh, that's really interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
And it's funny. I'm going to get to kind of a study on digital transformation that kind of outlines kind of internal capabilities, familiarity, and so on, to kind of help companies through that digital transformation. And it's really interesting to see how it's not really sometimes cost on a dollar basis, but it's time and resources internally that hold back, and that ultimately kind of delays some investment that can happen. And we're not alone, I'm going to say, in the solar industry in looking at this. So as an example, if you move to the next slide, this is a study that was done in the private equity world. And a survey found in late 2018 that half of capital fund managers, they exclusively use Excel to monitor their investments. Because ultimately change is hard. Change management, internal capabilities, the urgency to change, and clinging to approaches and so on become very common. The number of times I hear about Excel in a discussion of a potential client is all the time. And that, however, doesn't underline as much the imperative to change. But I think as an industry, we're getting there. If we move to the next slide, this little study has been done by DNVGL in their digitalization streams. And actually, they did really interesting studies to find out how you can create value. And that's the key thing, right? Digital can create value. And it's always people, process, and technology working together to really drive value. And if you look at where people, 40% of the industry says digitalization is part of our strategy. And if we look at today's call, we had, I think, 46% out of that. But the interesting thing behind that is about only 20% of the organizations feel that they're more advanced than their peers. So the question is, does that leave 80% of us behind? And it's really interesting to survey when you look at the themes that are more and more important. So the main ones, obviously data visualization is a key thing. Can I see information? Cloud computing, so moving things to the cloud, and automation and digital workflows. Those are the three more important kind of buckets. Then obviously with cloud and so on, you have to layer cybersecurity and so on. I think a lot of us are familiar with GDPR now and what that means for data storage and those type of things. But that's really interesting to start and say, okay, well, as an industry, we're moving there, but few companies think that they're really ahead. And to kind of in parallel to that, Deloitte has done a study as well on the forces. If we move to the next slide, Marco, about key drivers behind digital innovation for power and utility. Already were, as solar and renewables were already a bit disruptive, but I thought that was really interesting graph to share with you today, in that digital can have an impact across different segments. It can enhance revenues on one hand, it can decrease costs, it can help create new products and services, it'll have an impact that it allows new companies to come and compete. But all through it all, there's really opportunities to create the value through digital. And if there's one thing that we can take away from today's webinar, so I hope, is really that thought that leveraging digital can create value. It allows you to create opportunities. And I think Tobias has shared some examples on their business, and maybe I'm sure he can share a little bit more about what's been going on in their own operations. But that's really the interesting thing to kind of think about, is whatever your scale, there's value to create through digital. And I'll hand it over to Tobias, Marco, if you want to switch the slide.
Thank you very much, Etienne. Yeah, first of all, digital is not magic. It's a lot of work, I can tell you. It's a lot of pain, but in the end, it's really worth it. So I give you an example out of our current organization. 5 years ago, our service technicians, if they had to do semi-annual or annual inspections or any, let's say, preventive maintenance works, they went on site and literally had a template on a piece of paper and a digital camera, and walked through the wind turbine or through the PV site. They noted down all the findings, took pictures of any topics they wanted to report. And after being, let's say, maybe 4 days in a wind farm with 80 turbines or on several PV farms, they went back to the office, maybe even the next week, sat down for 2 days and wrote reports. Yeah? So it was far too late to write the reports. It was difficult to download the pictures from the camera and make sure that you know which picture was taken in which wind farm. And we, of course, had to change that. And with a small software provider, we created a so-called service app, which digitized all these processes. So now the service app was offline, capable of work offline. Our service technicians went to the site. They went through the protocol. They did all the work they did. They took pictures with the smartphone. The pictures were automatically implemented into the protocol of the inspection. And of course, it took much less time. The quality was much higher. And when the technicians went off the site, the protocol was already in their mailbox. Now, the next step we're doing right now is there's much more to be implemented. It's not only the, let's say, the template of inspections, it's also the topics I briefly touched earlier today. Which technicians is going there? What kind of spare parts does he or she need? What kind of tools are necessary? What kind of qualifications are necessary? Which is the best route to not only go to one wind farm, but maybe to pass also for a second and third one to optimize and save costs. And all these topics we are now rolling out. We're just in the process of rolling out a field resource management system based on the Salesforce platform. And this will allow us to be much more efficient in organizing our on-site technicians, which will improve the quality of our work and of course also save costs for us and for our customers. So this is an example of what we do. And of course, it took a lot of time to get all these topics done. One of the most important things is that you really understand your processes. So it really forces you to think, how do we actually do our work? In any organization, you will have people doing it like you have always done it. Now it's also a very important matter to convince your colleagues, to convince your teams that change is not bad, that they will benefit from it, even if it's additional work in the beginning. And that's what digital transformation is about. It's really not only implementing a tool, but making sure that the organization is following you and that they can see and feel the motivation which is behind it. Now, of course, that's just one example. At BayWa, we have decided on a digital roadmap. We have a clear vision where we want to go. And we know we cannot do everything at one time. That would be impossible. And it's also very important not to lose focus. There are so many potential topics you could touch, and you have to make sure that you concentrate on the first things first. Otherwise, you will get lost and you will also lose your people again. So number one for us is really optimize existing operations. That means we do not do any artificial intelligence topics. We don't do any blockchain issues right now. Right now, it's really making sure that we improve our operations, that we optimize workflows and reports, that we implement an intelligent portfolio management, and that we digitize work hours, tickets, and the communication between the different systems. And we have been working with Powerhub for over a year now. We worked and are working really well together with the team in Toronto. That's why we finally decided to acquire the company, because we believe it's going to be a really important part of our work in the future. If you have optimized the existing operations, and that means that you primarily have a transparency in your data. So all the different systems which we are using today, they have to feed the data into one single source of truth. Now, if you have enabled that, then you can start to create a platform, and out of this platform, you can offer different kind of modules to your internal organization or also to your customers. And as you can see, we have a clear vision what we want to do. And then you can start to make your organization more efficient and make sure that the efforts are going to be paid back. But it's still only the second step. Now, if you have access to a lot of data, that means that you can do more than just the optimization of existing processes. It really means that you can think about analysis and big data mining, which enables you to do completely new things. So you can find out what kind of spare parts are working better than others. You can really do cross-industry analysis. You You can improve your negotiation position against subcontractors or spare parts suppliers, and you can make sure that you are ahead of the time and are not left behind, because the data are there, somebody will use them, and you should be part of this community.
That's really helpful to see, Tobias, and to understand. And I think an important kind of start there is the scope of technology in companies' operations often vary. It can be very broad, as in this case, and we'll dig into that in a second together. But really, people should look at technology as a support for your business more than anything. And giving kind of people, process, and technology working together can be key value drivers and can lead to new business models or new opportunities, as Tobias was mentioning. So for us here at Powerhub, working with BayWa, we have deployed the solution in a variety of different areas. And I don't know, Tobias, do you want to bring us through a little bit of what Powerhub is doing at BayWa right now?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So we are using Powerhub, as you can see, in different areas. If we start in a very pragmatic one, of course, we want to give transparency and overview to our customers. The so-called PDF reports, which come late, there's only 6 weeks after the month has started. Of course, we had that in the past, and we are partially still working with them, but this is, of course, going to change. So the customer has the right, and he should have live access to what's going on his asset, and he should not wait for a report to be written in a week and then corrected and sent out with a let's say from now on quite big delay in time. So of course we want be open to our customers. We want to give them access via the customer portal, which is going to be open via Powerhub, and the asset managers should have access to all the relevant information of the investments. But it's not only the customer who will benefit from it. We also are using it for our internal organization. So the monitoring and control center is now operating more than 7 gigawatts, and of course they have to have access on all the information for the different assets. So if something goes wrong on a wind farm in Scotland, our control center needs to know who to call, and all this information was stored on Excel files in the past, and now we are migrating it to Powerhub, and all information is always up to date, is online, and our control center in Munich or in Bangkok have access to the same information. It's not only about monitoring control center, it's also the project managers. So project managers at BayWa are the internal asset managers who work on several renewable energy projects and manage all the contracts, all the local technicians, the local landlords, the stakeholders in the next village, everything which needs to be done to keep all the involved communities on a high satisfaction level. All that, of course, in the past was also done via Excel files, via emails, via paper documentation, and we migrated all this data into Powerhub, and it's quick available. The overview is better, and we can be sure that we do not have different versions of different decentralized documents lying around, and nobody knows what is the latest update. Of course, it's also important for the management. Yeah, if we can create at Powerhub different portfolios for countries, for team leaders, for different regions, for example, Europe or North America, and we can give a really quick access to our top management, what's going on, what's the production output of portfolios in different categories. And last but not least, it's also important for marketing to know what is going on in different projects, to have an overview over what we are currently working on, which kind of countries we are in, what kind of which market is in which position. So what is the biggest market? What is the most? What is the next target we have on our strategy list? So it's also feeding other parts of the organization to make sure that everybody is having access to the same data. So it starts even when we talk about press releases, then marketing should know what is the actual number of gigawatts we're having under control. In general, we see that many different parts of the organization are benefiting from a system like Powerhub.
Thanks a lot, Tobias, for this overview. And I think it's great to see that in this case, we tackled a number of different internal challenges, and I will keep working together on a variety of other ones. So maybe it's a good time to ask our audience what they consider to be their business challenges and so on. These are just five of them here. There's obviously tons of different challenges that we can see that we can have, one of which is operational transparency, so having access to what's going on, just knowing. Sometimes is half the battle. Having up-to-date information and data, so as Tobias mentioned, looking at the right agreement or the right clauses and the right format. Sometimes it's more financial, reducing cash cycles. We've seen tons of opportunities sometimes in automated invoicing, dispatching, just reducing cash cycles. Efficiency, just figuring out doing the things right, so doing things the right way. And effectiveness, doing the right things. And I think that's very important differences, but those are things for our audience to consider right now. Really interesting kind of lay here. So doing the things right has come out on top with kind of information and effectiveness on close second. And I think that's a key thing that I personally see at a lot of our clients and prospective clients is the ways of doing things, because you can always throw more bodies at a problem, but sometimes is that the right way to do it, right? And I think that's the key thing, and good question to ask of people and say, hey, how can digital really support my business? And that's a key thing that's there. So with that in mind, I'd just like to close this webinar before we open it for questions with a few key things to consider in your own digital journey. I think we've heard great examples today from Tobias about how that has gone forward at BayWa. This little synopsis of what we've seen at BayWa, but also in our other organizations as key things. I think starting early, I can't stress enough. It's often a chicken or the egg discussion for a lot of people, but starting is the first step. And really, if you can combine that with strong leadership buy-in where your colleagues or your boss and the whole organization states, yes, that's where we're going, and maybe defining that as a bold vision and articulating it, and that's going to help drive that vision forward internally. And then when that's defined, it's really engaging with your colleagues and your teams. We get phenomenal insights so from people who are really in the trenches when we're looking at how can a process be implemented or bettered and so on. Because the people who are going to use it every day can sometimes have great ideas. That's really about engaging with the team to really get those insights out. And then for them to show that something that has none of them is working and showing those quick wins. Sometimes it can be about simply migrating information quickly to give it access to them, or a specific process, automating those type of things. and really having an internal team or a point of contact to drive the process forward. And on the BayWa side, there's a digital transformation team led by Virgil, who's been a great champion at BayWa and really helps centralize a little bit of the resources. And that can be sometimes an internal champion, could be the head of asset management. It doesn't need to be a dedicated technology team, but sometimes having one key contact for internal stakeholders really helps drive the process forward. Tobias, do you have anything to add on these or some thoughts?
Yes, so I think especially point one, starting early, and is very crucial and essential. So you should never wait until some things are ready, whether they are in your own organization or outside. So the digital world is new to everybody, so there's nobody who has the complete solution for everything. It's really try and error, and you need to find your own way. And it's a learning process. So you have to start small, but you have to start. And from my own experience, I can say that we started all the digital topics in our, let's say, service division at BayWa RE, and we were definitely the first ones in the company. And now, step by step, also other parts of the company are following us because they see the benefits from it. Yeah, and that's how others buy in, and that's how you create a pull effect and also networking effect in your own company. But you should not have the master plan ready, which you elaborate like for 2 years, because then it's completely outdated when you start. So yeah, you should really start small, be agile, make mistakes, adapt, go on, and make sure that some things are happening. Yeah, that's the most important topic for me.
No, I think that's a great synopsis of things to consider in the digital journey. And there's tons of studies that have been built out there. There's tons of resources for people to consult. And I'm just going to close this session before going to Q&A with some aspects that you can really think about, and that's across different industries. And just to give a point that digital is a theme that everybody brings in. Already we have 3 or 4 studies that we referred to today. So it's really about making things more accessible to your team. And it's about, I've said this before, I'll say it again, it's about people, process, and technology. These are really important to kind of have in sync. And sometimes bringing people that are familiar with digital technologies to the team. I think we had kind of one of the topics today on the polls that lack of internal capabilities sometimes is a challenge. So how you capture that, how you bring people in or rely on third parties to help you is always great. It's engaging with the team and really driving that forward. So this study is referred to in the notes here as some of the other ones. So I think that's going to give everybody also some food for thought and some reading materials after this session. But for the minutes that we have, I think it would be great to open it up to the Q&A. So thank you everybody for listening to me today, and Tobias, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much also from my side.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Tobias and Etienne, for making the time today and enlightening us on these very, very interesting topics. For the attendees, I encourage you to keep asking questions. We've already received a couple, and the Q&A session will start now. Please use the question box to ask any questions that you would like to ask Powerhub or BayWa. To start off with the first question, do you already see profits from your digitalization efforts? Can you quantify? Are there any KPIs to measure that? As an example, the attendee writes, cost decrease per megawatt of solar installed since digitalization commenced. Could you expand a bit on that?
Yes, I can. Yes, we see the results of the efforts. To be honest, the first thing we thought was additional work. So digitalization is a lot of work. You have a lot of data in your organization. The data is everywhere, but it's definitely not organized and not centralized. And you only can use the digital tools if you get the data in the right format, if you get it organized, and then you have to migrate it into the system. And this definitely costs a lot of effort. I want to be really honest. In the beginning, it also demotivated the people because it is additional work in the beginning. But now that we see light in the end of the tunnel, it really the people see that it is they really benefit from it, because we have been growing quite a lot over the last years, and the organization didn't keep up, and now they see that we implement the right tools, and that they need less time to organize a certain work on site, or that they need less time to find the right information to do something, and that's definitely a great benefit for us.
Great, great. Yeah, I think you summarized it nicely a couple of slides ago when you said when moving to digitalization, don't be afraid to make mistakes. I mean, I'm sure data is a daunting task. It can be a burden, but by managing it correctly, like you said, it can lead to a lot of efficiency gains. Sticking on the topic of data, the next question would be, how do you manage to standardize the collection of on-site production data with a big variety of systems and designs?
So it's a very good question. In the end, what we want to do for our asset managers and our customers is that we want to feed the final data into Powerhub, which are coming from different kind of systems. So we are using different monitoring systems for wind and solar, and of course some of these systems are bound to the sites because of hardware or because of software contracts with our customers. So we cannot change everything. So it's important for us that in the end, let's say what our asset managers see and what our customers see is standardized, and it's transparent, and this final platform to present it to our own people and to our customers will be done via the asset management software Powerhub.
And on that, Alfonso, that's where it's really important to understand that every company runs a software ecosystem. It's not one solution to rule them all often enough. And we see in the case of BayWa and other clients, we interface with different software platforms. So aggregating performance data from different sources, then often looking at how KPIs are calculated to make sure that we have the right format of data and the right definition of data to meet the contractual obligations that a service provider may have with an asset owner, as an example.
All right, yeah, thanks for the insight. Related to that, to a certain degree, another one of our attendees asks, yeah, linking data from monitoring systems to central asset management software is good, of course, but however, how do we easily clean data gaps, or what are the best practices for maintaining a clean data set?
Etienne, go ahead.
Yes. So there's always, unfortunately, the answer is it depends. And how you want, what are the underlying system? And a key component to kind of understand is what is the system of record for a specific point of information. That's always useful to understand. So when data flows to Powerhub, in this instance or in other clients, we try to rely on that the underlying system becomes a system of record. So we know different vendors using different methods to clean data, but there's always eventualities where it doesn't work. Example, ways that we get around it is we run different types of schedules to acquire data, different granularity and so on to try to cover these gaps, but also give tools within the software to re-upload data and so on to make that data set consistent and clean. But really it's about understanding more often than not, what is the system of record? And then if you have changes made in the data, it's often important to propagate that data afterward to the other systems to make sure that it's a unified data set. We have examples of sites in certain more challenging jurisdictions where data gaps on a monthly basis are normal. And so we have to propagate the data through the different systems afterwards to make sure that we have a unified data source afterwards.
All right. Okay. Great to hear. Yeah, another attendee asks a question that I think connects to this one as well. The question being, could digitalization be a limit or a bottleneck to digitally transform because of sensoring capability in order to detect certain issues that would reduce the efficiency of a company? So in other words, when they're trying to digitalize and they run into hotspots, microcracks, or snail trails, sorry, are these issues expected to be easily monitored in the near future, or as technology advances, are these issues more likely to be monitored?
So, very good question. To be honest, we are not, so neither Powerhub nor BayWa is a provider of monitoring software. I think the best people to answer that would be the people who provide monitoring software for PV and wind systems. But my question would be, why not? I mean, of course, they're always improving their software, and why should it not be possible to detect even smaller errors, or to even better say what's going on site via the use of intelligent software? I mean, I'm not the person to answer how to write a program which can detect micro cracks or all the other defects you mentioned, but for sure, step by step, people will get closer to it.
All right, great. And I think this is the final question. Looking into the field of asset digitalization, as there's more advance in the technology, I think this one's more a bit for you, Etienne. And what do you think are the new emerging fields inside of this asset digitalization and field? What are new areas to explore?
Well, that's the beauty of technology. It's always, I'm going to say, evolving over time, and you see different vendors and services being offered. I think if we look at kind of result, there's always AI and machine learning approaches that can and will be implemented across the data sets and so on. So we'll see that basically edge computing coming to sites is a big one that I see as well coming towards. But there's a lot of other opportunities to kind of entrench. But I think a key thing that I get from our clients and so on is there's always new things coming out, but starting early to kind of look at this and getting started at one point is going to lead to better overall. The more people are looking into digital, making investments, we'll see new applications coming, be it like forecasting demand, more predictive maintenance. There's tons of optimization approaches that can be done for different businesses. And I think it's a really great time for the industry. I think we've seen a number of new vendors come into the market, offer different technology. Just a question you had before about, okay, will we be able to detect micro cracks on monitoring side? I think it's just a matter of time, and we'll see that better data quality ultimately is going to lead to better decision, and then better services and so on, and really starts a virtuous circle, in my humble opinion.
Great. Thank you very much for that response. I think that really wraps up in many ways the whole topic of digitalization and asset management. With this, I'd like to thank you very much once again, Tobias and Etienne. It's really a treat hearing your expert opinion on these topics. Thank you for taking the time to be with us here at Solarplaza during our webinar. For our viewers, I'd like to remind you once again that the early bird expires for our Frankfurt event tomorrow, Friday, the 13th of September. You can still claim your 5% discount by using the code webinar-5. And yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you very much for all the questions, all the input. And once again, to our speakers, thank you very much for taking your time. To everyone else, have a great day.
Thank you very much, Alfonso. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Muted.